All right, moving on now, gang, to story number 2. And this is a weird one, gang, and the point that I have to make about it might not be the point that you originally think that I'm going to make about it. This particular iteration of the story, which has been going all over the internet today, is from the New York Post. And I simply chose the New York Post because it is a bit more actually fair and balanced than NBC, Yahoo News, etc., which were also running this story. This headline just has to be seen or heard to be believed. Texas school under fire for Chivalry Day that had girls obey boys. I'm going to read to you a couple of paragraphs from the story. According to a copy of the assignment rules posted by a Dallas Morning News reporter, the unorthodox lesson was meant to mimic medieval notions of chivalry to demonstrate how courtly love carries over into the modern day. Female students were encouraged to address all men with a lowered head and curtsy, and encouraged not to whine or complain for the duration of the assignment. In order to win points during the exercise at Shallowater High School in Lubbock, female students were told not to show intellectual superiority if it would offend the men around them, according to the tweet. Male students were also reportedly given advisories, including referring to girls as milady and showing courtly courtesy as they assist ladies who may have dropped an article by picking it up for them, according to a subsequent tweet. Okay. The descent into pure on madness, gang. Just to not even madness, to parody. We're not in a Marx Brothers movie. We're not even in a Three Stooges movie anymore. We're almost like in a Dumb and Dumber movie now. And it's on both ends of the political spectrum, because I'm sure that this school was trying to actually reintroduce some manners or something. They should have just called it Manor Day. And that is actually what gets me the most about this story. It's not about the implied misogyny or sexism. I mean, that is pretty bad. I mean, telling women not to show intellectual superiority. I for one am sure, show your superiority. I mean, if you genuinely know more than someone else, whether it's another woman, whether it's a man, whether it's a wominx, which we are now told that we have to say, so as to be inclusive of all women, quote unquote, I say go for it. Don't be a snob about it. Don't shove their noses into it. But if you genuinely know more about a subject, then don't be afraid to stay quiet for fear that it will offend someone. If you know, if your area, for example, is Edwardian England, or I don't know, the American Civil War, or if it's even a TV show, okay, and someone is gabbing on and on about it and just getting things wrong, then no, of course not. Step in, say, I don't think that's exactly the case. There's a way of demonstrating your superior knowledge without being a jerk. That's perfectly all right. But even that is not the problem here, gang. The problem is that this school completely, absolutely, hideously, horribly, horrendously got chivalry wrong. This school couldn't teach chivalry if its collective life depended on it, because it obviously doesn't know what chivalry is. In this school's idea, whatever genius dreamed this up, chivalry is all about wearing those pointy little hats and giving curtsies and rising when the woman comes in and milady and things like that. This is a very bad, cheesy, grade C Hollywood vision of chivalry, which is really honestly what really angers me, because chivalry was a real thing. It was created in the 11th century, and it wasn't female-centric, gang, and women, the proper respect and attitude to have towards a woman wasn't even its primary goal. You want to know what the primary goal of medieval chivalry was? It was to channel masculine strength and masculine instincts into promoting the common good. That, in a nutshell, is what chivalry was about. Now, One of the best well-known articulations of the different tenets of the Code of Chivalry actually comes from a ballad from the Middle Ages, the Song of Roland. All right, the Song of Roland, which was written between 1098 and 1100, which is actually the right time period that we want, because it is true. Again, as I said, chivalry was created in the 11th century, so in the 1000s AD. Later on, as the Middle Ages progressed, so in the middle of the 14th century, that is when we get a much more romanticized view of chivalry. That is when we get like the love stories. That's where we get additions in the Arthurian legend, especially with that focus on Lancelot and Guinevere and all of that. But when it was originally created, it was, think of it as almost the Boy Scout law, except a lot more hardcore. That's what it was. Again, it wasn't female-centric, it wasn't for women, and it didn't have women as its object. It wasn't created so that men would know how to treat women. It was created to channel the masculine nature into defending the common good. And so this is what the Song of Roland, written at roughly the same time that the Code of Chivalry had been invented, which is why it is, we can surmise that the tenets it gives are actually what chivalry was when it was originally created. Again, it's not a romanticized version that came later. So these are the tenets of chivalry that are listed in the Song of Roland, which again was written between 1098 and 1100 AD. The Code of Chivalry says that the knight will fear God and maintain his church, serve the liege lord in valor and faith, protect the weak and defenseless, give succor to the widows and orphans, refrain from the wanton giving of offense, live by honor and for glory, despise pecuniary reward, fight for the welfare of all, obey those placed in authority, guard the honor of fellow knights, eschew unfairness, meanness, and deceit, keep the faith, at all times to speak the truth, persevere to the end in any enterprise begun, respect the honor of women, to never refuse a challenge from an equal, never turn your back upon a foe. That is the Code of Chivalry. Did you notice something? That there's nothing about rising when a lady enters. There's nothing about picking up her purse or her pen when it falls. Nothing about, oh, milady this and milady that, which was more a product of the time instead of the Code of Chivalry. Did you see what was in those tenets of chivalry? This was something primordial. This was something deep. Fear God. I think it's somewhere in the Bible, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So again, you have to fear God. Maintain his church. In other words, be religious, okay? You fear God. You know the truth. Live by it, people. Loyalty and honor. Serve the liege lord in valor and faith. Protect the weak and defenseless. Give support to widows and orphans. Live by honor and for glory. So in other words, be honorable. Be courageous. Put others before yourself. You are a servant of others. You're a knight. That means that you're strong. That means you have a social position that the vast majority of people don't in this society. It also means that you've got money and some sort of property, because a knight was expected to buy his own horse and buy his own arms and armor. That stuff wasn't cheap, gang, especially when you remember that there are no machines back then. Everything is being welded. Everything is being formed by hand, forged by hand, in fire and flame and heat. Guard the honor of fellow knights, so you have a brotherhood. Respect the honor of women. Okay, but that is the only tenet that actually mentions women. Respect the honor of women. That means, don't be chasing the girls. Don't sleep with them. Don't have a one-night stand with them and then go off to another flower, you're not the bee and they're not the flowers. Respect the honor of women. That's what it meant back in the Middle Ages. This is something, gang. Like I said, I can't put it any more simply than that. It was to channel manliness in body, mind, and soul into the common good. And the Duke of Burgundy, later on in the 14th century even. So if we want to go on and talk about, well, later on when chivalry was kind of changed in the 14th century, the Duke of Burgundy gave a list of virtues that encapsulated the Code of Chivalry. And they were faith, charity, justice, sagacity, prudence, temperance, resolution, truth, liberality, diligence, hope, and valor. How many of those boys at Shallowater High School do you think actually learned any of those virtues? If that had been the lesson, I would have absolutely no problem with this. In fact, I'd be pumping my fist in the air and saying, yes, that is what we need. We need more of that. But no, they turned it into a Renaissance fair. In essence, gang, they passed up a beautiful, marvelous opportunity because I'll be honest, this is what we need. This is what we need. We need the resurrection of chivalry. Too many people, gang, they see chivalry as just this ornate set of manners, courtly manners. So the chivalrous person, he will lay his jacket out before a lady so she doesn't get her feet muddy crossing the street. And he will talk in a very highbrow way. He won't cuss, he won't swear, he will upon my word, and things like that. We have a very stereotypical, almost a parody idea now because it's been spoofed so often because that idea is so spoofable. But this stuff, the real chivalry, it's muscle, it's blood, it's fire, it's resolution, it's iron, indomitable will, channeled for the common good, channeled to help those who are weaker than you. Develops a mindset that you are the servant of the people. Yeah, you're richer than they are. You own land unlike they do, or you are above people, but that doesn't mean that they serve you. You serve them. You lift them up. You help them. That is what chivalry is. And that's what the world desperately needs. Not just for men, yes, but so that society will be better for it. Now, some people might be tapping away furiously in the comment section at this point that, yeah, Nate, but it never actually existed. It never actually happened. I mean, sure, it's nice and all, but give me a historical example where it really worked. First, Middle Age is not my forte, gang, so you got me there. Second of all, even if there had never been a single example of a knight or anyone in the Middle Ages living up to the full code of chivalry, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Because human beings, knights or not, are fallible, like we all are. The important thing here was the idea. The important thing here was that, hey, you can't just run around and do whatever you want. You can't just rob, rape, pillage, loot, and burn and oppress people. There is an ideal here. It is your job to strive to live up to that ideal. And maybe that is the real loss of chivalry. That we've lost the ideal. We've lost it. What ideals do we have? It's basically all awash in materialism and commercialism and comfort. And again, nothing wrong with owning things, gang. Nothing wrong in wanting to better your condition. Nothing wrong at all in wanting to better the financial fortunes of your family. Nothing wrong with wanting to be comfortable, wanting a little bit of comfort. But when that's all we have, that's when we get in trouble. And for, as you all know, for the last couple of decades, that's all that we've had. We need a return of chivalry of some kind. And I'm thinking about doing a whole video actually on this, to be honest. Because if the Shallowater High School is their idea of bringing back chivalry, then it doesn't have a prayer. And it's a good thing that it was shut down. We want the return of authentic chivalry. That is story number 2.